3, 2. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this segment of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad that you decided to join us today, and I have a special guest with us today that I'm eager to introduce you to. However, let me tell you a little bit about a program. The purpose behind this broadcast has to do with it's the name. So in 2018, when I was walking down the hall upstairs in my home, I heard Sagionic. I thought that's interesting. I've never heard that word before. Then in my mind, I heard Sagionic. And I was like, well, isn't that interesting? It was the word, it was even spelled for me. So I decided to look up the word. The word Sagionic means movement by movement in time. It is Greek, and I'm Greek. So it was very special to me. So I just kind of hung on to the word, fascinated by it, just kind of hung on to it. So the word Sagionic means movement by movement in human time. However, the word Sagion means wisdom carrier. So if we combine the two, wisdom carriers, movement by movement in time, that's how movements are created. So our goal is to, how do we take business minds? Now, my husband, say for instance, he's been with the same company for 31 years. He doesn't own the company, but clearly if you're with the same company for 31 years, it's because you had business integrity. It's because you walked out a certain work ethic. And so with us today is a man of extreme business intelligence, which is a dear friend of mine, and his name is David Wright, and he happens to be the president of the Dale Carnegie Institute in Texas. So today, Dave, it's all about you, and what is it that you would like to share with our viewers today?
Okay. Well, I'm happy to have a dialogue about what that really means, but I think I do have a unique background in that I've been involved with this for over 30 years. And not only am I second generation Dale Carnegie person, but I even have my kids now involved in the Dale Carnegie business too. So it's really, it's a family legacy just about how people can grow and develop and live their life. I was pondering, how did I get into this line of work in the first place? And so it's really hard to grow up around this and not be intrigued, because I watched my criteria when I was 18 years old was, what do I want to do with my life? And my first thoughts were, I want to not work outside, I want to wear a suit, and I want to make money. That was my criteria. And then personal loss, my mom passed away right around that time. And I remember at her funeral, I had probably 50 people come to me and say, your mother changed my life. Your mother changed my life. Your mother changed my life. And they always followed that by saying she taught the Dale Carnegie course that I was in, and this person would name the town where she was. They often said too, I never knew she was sick. I can't believe it. How long was she sick? So my mother, I often say, is my inspiration in the business. My dad was my mentor. My mother is my inspiration in this business, just to help people achieve their potential, who they can be.
That's right.
I love that from a business perspective too. I believe the same thing about business, that there's so much untapped potential drives me crazy. That's my
Yes,
passion,
yes.
is to see people when they have all this talent and they have these abilities and they don't do anything with it. Or I even see organizations that are just missing the mark and they could be doing so much more. Drives me crazy. And so I have this passion to help.
Well, you know what's interesting that you would say that is, in about 4 years ago, I was introduced to, I don't even know how it happened, I was introduced to Miles Monroe. I, you've never heard of Miles Monroe?
I should, maybe. No.
Oh my
Tell me
goodness.
more.
Miles Monroe. I lived, ate, slept, listened to Miles Monroe Global Ministry. Okay. I listened to him around the clock. I could not get enough of him. He slipped off the pages of Earth. I want to say it was like around 2013, 14, somewhere in there. But one of the things that he used to say is, it drives him nuts that there are people who go to the grave with books in them.
Yes.
books of knowledge in them, songs inside of them,
Songs
you know,
unsung. Yep.
yeah, just everything. And so Miles Monroe, if you thought, if oh, oh, your clients are in for a treat. They're in for a treat. He's a big
I
one.
will. I wrote it down.
Yeah, you will really, really be blessed by it. So tell us more. Your mom was your inspiration, and your dad was your teacher. So if we think of it, the word train means to disciple. Disciple means to discipline.
Mm,
Discipline means to teach.
mm.
And so so tell me this. Even though you were raised in the midst of this, you still had a choice. You still had a choice. So go back when you made that choice. This is definitely the direction I want to go. Not just at your mom's passing, but even before then. You had to have chosen to partner with thoughts that were being sent to your direction. So take us back a little further.
Hmm. I do remember the transformation in my father when he took the Dale Carnegie course. I was 7 years old. And at the age of 7, the things I noticed were one, he was no longer shy when we would go into a place of business and want service. He would engage people and he would talk to people and he would get what he wanted in a really nice,
Mm.
pleasant way instead of walking in places and leaving frustrated for lack of service or something along those lines. So the other thing I noticed is that he didn't fall asleep on the couch when he came home at night. And I now know what that means. That means he was stressed at work and he would come home and he was
Mm.
energized and he would engage with the family more. And so those were really observations I had that it's possible. A lot of times people think you can't change. You are what you are, and your DNA is pre-coded, or your childhood or your upbringing has caused you to be who you are. But I saw early on that people change. People can change, and they can do it significantly and for the better. Actually, we were trying to figure out how long ago we had last seen each other. The last time you saw me, I was probably 50 or 60 pounds heavier too. And so that transformation happened for me very quickly, and I've been able to maintain it. And it's really just about once you see yourself differently, see yourself in terms of how you could be, and then you take action toward that. It's amazing how things just fall into place. So I was just intrigued by that from a young person. I also had an entrepreneurial spirit. I remember just even in my days of a skateboarder, when I would, as a teenager, skateboarding, wanted to have places to skateboard, and we couldn't do that. So they were always after us, stay off the street, stay off there, and so stay out of the mall parking lots. Everybody was like chasing you away. So eventually, we went to my friend and I. We formed a nonprofit association, and we went to city hall, and we started doing fundraising, and they eventually put it in the budget. And the little town in the city that I live in or lived in at the time now has a skateboard park that is funded by the city that goes all the way back to, I'm not going to say how many years ago, because my friend Eric and I started this nonprofit. And so I think what was instilled in me very young is that it's possible what to see change, to affect change, and it starts with changing yourself.
That's really good. It made me think of, isn't there a shoe, a skater shoe it's a DC? Isn't that the name of a skater shoe?
Oh,
They're
why am I drawing a
not
blank?
Vans, but there's another.
Vans is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Vans, because I was thinking of DC, Dale Carnegie, right?
Oh,
Okay, or WW, like WS shoes, WDS shoes, or something like that, right? So if we did
not my gig. I
DW,
didn't do it.
okay, wait. If we do DWDC, right? Or a Dale Carnegie skate park, that's catchy. DC,
That's funny.
DCSK, like, DCSK DW. Dale
This is
Carnegie Skate Park with David Wright.
miles away from where I am today. This would have been Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I never would have dreamt that this kid from Canada would end up in Texas either. So,
But yeah, let's think of this for a second though, because it's through that creative realm. So to get kids off the couch and in the field, right? Off the couch and in the field. Because out there in nature, nature's continually changing around us. So if your parents did not have those entrepreneurial minds, right? And you were on the couch falling asleep, right? Or in video land, not shunning video land, right? But if you were confined, that wasn't where you needed to be. So you needed that creative outlet. And so from that, so that would be your first like project, your first business project.
Yeah, I just remember my father saying to me when I was 12,
Okay.
he said, I wish somebody had told me when I was your age that I could own my own business, that I didn't have to work for somebody else. That's just he said, I physically reacted. I remember that moment. And at the time I was into like motorbikes, the
Okay.
trail bikes and stuff. And he said, you could have your own Kawasaki dealership, or you could, and I remember just pondering that. And, I think that's really what's powerful. There's moments in your life where people speak to you and you have an opportunity to embrace it or not. And I just saw that as an opportunity. It was a seed that was planted.
Okay. So if you think of your mind, it was the seed that was planted, but you chose to come into partnership with that seed. You didn't reject it because
True.
The package in which it came from your dad, the kind, loving voice, you've seen the difference that it made in his life, right? So what would you say is the important factor of being cautious on what you allow to come into your ears, thus mulling it over in your mind?
Well, so I wasn't probably going to go here, but as an example, when I lost all that weight, I was really quite surprised at people's reaction. In fact, people would come to me and they would do the same thing that I used to do. It's like, wow, how did you do that? That's amazing. And then as soon as I would tell them, because I was so excited about this and I want to help people, I would tell them, oh, I was on this plan and I did this. And then I explained, start laying it all out. And I would just watch their eyes would glaze over. And then they would start telling me what was wrong with my plan.
When you were the proof in the pudding.
Yeah. And I'm saying, well, you asked me what I did. I didn't tell you it was right. And it happened to be in this case that, and I no longer use this, but at the time it really helped me. It was kind of this pre-packaged food, right? And they're like, oh, I would never eat, pre-packaged food. And I'm sure that's not good for you. And I said, well, I think it's better than the Taco Bell Chinese food buffet strategy I had before. So, but people seem to want answers and then they reject the answers because they're not comfortable for them, or they want to justify decisions that they're already making. I say this to people in training all the time. I say, let's try something new. Okay, maybe I'm teaching presentations, and I'll say, all right, we're gonna try to be more dynamic than you've ever been in your life. Let's just try it out, see what it looks like. And they go, oh, well, that's not going to work. I said, well, okay, you already have your way. You can always go back to that. Let's see what it looks like. Let's just try it, see what it looks like. But it's always fascinating to me that people will reject trying something new because it's not something they're already doing. I'm like, well, that's the whole point about something new. Is that if you're not already doing it, that like you've already got the old way down, and it might, even if it's working for you, fine, but there might be something better. So be open to it. And I think you have to be wise. You have to consider the source and all of that kind of thing. But I always think it's ironic when somebody pays me for advice and then doesn't want to hear it.
That would be an awkward situation, and I'm sure all humans that were hearing this broadcast would raise their hand and say, I've been there. I've been there, right?
I actually got to the point where I stopped telling people about the weight thing. I just say, oh, diet and exercise, and they're like, oh, okay, that's what I was afraid of. And then they move on.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And we think of, but you had to come into agreement with it. You had to choose. You said something that was really key. So out in front of you, you placed an image of this is where I'm going. right? So once
Yes.
you place that image in front of you, then, okay, X amount of years ago, I was at the dry cleaners with my youngest, who is now 26. And she did something she wasn't supposed to do, left the dry cleaning store while I was checking in the stuff, whatever it was, right? I don't quite remember. But I walked over to the car. I told her what she did incorrectly. I told her I was going to spank her butt. I spanked her butt, and then I went to put her in the car. This woman came up to me and she said, "It is so good to see a parent properly and lovingly discipline their child. My son is the CEO of AT&T, and I
Wow.
knew that if I put boundaries up here and boundaries up here and boundaries up here and boundaries up here, that he would bounce off the boundaries and he would succeed." So, what are some boundaries that you can share with us that once you've decided to go a direction, right? You shared with us as far as your fitness boundaries that you placed around yourself. But in business, what are some boundaries to place around oneself to be able to excel forward where you want to go?
Yeah, interesting. Well, first you described that it starts with vision,
Okay.
and it really does. It's what you see, uh, and seeing yourself in that place, and just believing that it's possible and moving in that direction. I don't think you don't have to have the long-term vision,
Okay.
but I always wanted to. Ironically, I wanted to be where I am now, but it's better than it was. I didn't have a vision as big as I was able to achieve, but I had the direction. The other thing that I think is super powerful is that you need to be true to yourself. There's certain values that you have to understand and accept, that this is who you are. These are the things you believe. It's, gosh, this is a really crazy story. I wasn't. So
Surprise!
yeah. So I had the opportunity to become a Dale Carnegie trainer at the age of 22, and one of the uh, disciplines or exercises that this master trainer had me do. He was terrifying, by the way. I was so young, and he was just so intimidating to me, but a great man. He said, write out the "I believe in" statement. So I believe in, and then write out what those things are. And there should be at least five, six, something like that. So I wrote it all out, handwritten in cursive. This is how long ago it was, and my cursive writing was on point. And I'll tell you why that was interesting. But anyway, so I wrote it all out, and it was on a yellow notepad, much like this. And so, as you know, my wife passed early this year, in 2022. And so, one of the more challenging elements of that was I had to go through all these files, and I was looking through files, and I went through this file, and I found this file that she had just marked important things. And I thought, okay, that's, you know, what's going to be in here, right? So I open it up, and it's all the things you would not expect. I was expecting legal documents and, passports or something. And what it was is they were clippings of newspaper articles of our kids and just things like that. And to my shock, I found, and this is 35 years old, handwritten yellow pad "I believe in" statements. And I read it, and as I'm reading it, like, the tears are rolling down, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, gosh, the 22-year-old version of myself was pretty good. Like, because I was blown away that at 22, those things that I valued most in my life are still the things that I value to this day. And so I scanned it, and I sent a copy to my kids and a couple of other, people that I really value the relationship. And they came back and said, "That's you. That's who you are to this day." And so I I believe that I have worked very hard to have a vision but then operate thr through my values to achieve that vision. And because otherwise success is not success, you know? I mean, if I compromise on those things, gain the world and lose your soul, so to speak, right? If I compromise on those, then I don't think I really will have accomplished what I wanted. So um, it was fascinating to go through that process and realize that that affects the way I treat my employees. These values. So I have all sorts of really strange business value statements. Like I believe that okay, I always said I was going to write a book, which I haven't, and I was going to call "Make the Customer Second," which sounds counterintuitive, but I really believe that you grow from the inside out, and that I focus on developing my team. I focus on creating the best possible culture. I my the greatest moment in my leadership career was when I saw on social media a relatively new hire posted on her social media, kind of a rough weekend. Thank God tomorrow's Monday. I thought, that's what
Wow.
I want. I want to create an environment where people look forward to Monday. That the highlight of their week. Actually, we have our quarterly planning session next weekend, or Monday, Tuesday next week, and we talked about it on our Monday meeting, and everybody's like, "Yay! It's quarterly planning session! Yay! I was so excited." That's not the normal reaction that I hear from people when they talk about, "Oh, it's time for our annual plan or our quarterly planning meetings." But I really believe that when people love what they do, they love each other. And that can get a little corny by some people's definitions, but no, we hold hands and cry sometimes. Like we have this passion for what we're doing and for each other, and as a result, um, we have great outcomes for our customers. Our customers love it. In fact, our my team had the highest score in the world for their customer satisfaction this year. They're like
And
half of my trainer team was in the top 1% of trainers globally.
hmm, hmm.
And I believe that that's all connected. We've had incredible growth. Even during 2020, the Dale Carnegie Texas group grew. If you can imagine, that training is like a job where you put people in a room. So the day-to-day operation of our business was no longer possible, and we found a way to grow that year because my team is amazing.
And also, if we think of this for a second, the busyness of people being out, right? Instead of, who was it? One of the people I interviewed today, there was shared that a gentleman shared, "Oh, I found a quicker way to get home. I can get home 3 minutes quicker." And he was asked the question, "Well, what do you do with those 3 minutes?" And the guy just looked at him like, "What do you mean?" "Well, what are you doing with your time?" Right? Everybody's been given the same 24 hours. What are you doing with your time? So, time management. I remember a dear friend of both of ours said that the 4 years is going to pass, the 6 years is going to pass. How am I going to make those 6 years pass? How am I going to make those 6 years count?
Yeah. Who are you going to
Right?
be at the end of those 6 years? Yeah.
And it makes a big difference. And even down to another person I interviewed in his line of work, same thing. Same thing. He's the fifth. You're bringing forth the third generation in your children, right? But he is the fifth generation, and same
Wow.
principles in sharing, sowing into others around you, and being a voice of it. Because let's get real, if you are a negative Nancy and you spew your negative Nancy ism, okay, there is nothing. You are not going to feel special. You're going to get wrinkle lines, right? Or if you're stressed, you're going to get those pockets underneath your eyes. Who wants those pockets under their eyes, right? Who wants to be
I'm
stressed?
fighting them. I'm fighting them.
Yeah, nobody wants to be stressed, right? But even with what you share about your vision and your values, I guarantee you, David, you sleep like a kitten at night
Mm.
because you're not going back and, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, and oh, I was wrong to that person, I was coarse with that person. Come on, who does not want sweet sleep? So tell us, with this program that has been before you, tell us how you've chosen to stay in that space of peace with your values and with
Mm,
your vision.
mm. Well, I will be quick to say that I fail and that I am constantly working and trying to improve myself. I mean, it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
I really believe that it's so much about mindset and what you choose to focus on. So one of my favorite Dale Carnegie principles is just fill your mind with thoughts of peace, courage, health, and hope. And just it's what you focus on. And the other one I quote all the time is count your blessings, not your troubles. So I was having a conversation with somebody recently and explaining, okay, well, I have a business and I have these employees and I have payroll. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars per year in rent. I have, I can layer it on. I can layer on the heaviness, right? I can do that. But then I said, but I don't choose to focus on that. Yes, those are realities. Those are part of business, and I have to have strategy and a plan around that. But at the same time, I get to say, as I'm driving along, I have a thriving business. I get to work with people that I love and I get to do work that's meaningful. So, Shawn, in my darkest moments, this is the little mantra. This is not a Dale Carnegie. This is a Dave, right? I will say to myself in my darkest moments, much of humanity made bricks out of mud and then they died. That was the work they did. I know that's really morbid, but then I think I get to work with people I love. I get to talk to people about improving themselves in their life. I get to talk to businesses about what they're trying to accomplish and their visions and the kind of culture they're trying to create. I get to do meaningful work. This is what a blessing. Amazing. And then just you and I, the place we're living in right now, the kings of the 1500s couldn't live like this if they wanted to. So amazingly blessed. And so I just choose to take the focus from the struggles, and we all have them. And it doesn't mean that I don't have my moments that are painful, but it's where do you live? Where do you dwell? Where do you camp? And I just choose to recognize that. Well, it was like Paul said, count it all joy, right? There are things that are in front of us, but we can view them as opportunities, or we can opportunities to grow and better ourselves, or you can just camp there in the negative.
It really comes down to perspective. The choice of perspective, right?
Hmm.
It's a choice. So think of this: you are owning it, your own self, to not own it, to not owe it. This is a phrase that came to me today in one of the interviews. You're owning it to not own it, to owe it. You're owning it to not own it, to not owe it.
Hmm.
So you're owning it. Write this down, Dave. Somebody's got to write it down today. You're owning it to not own it, to not owe it. Okay? So let's think of the tongue, right? We can think of Zig Ziglar. Whether you think you can or can't, you're right,
Hmm.
right? We can think of, the Bible. Out of the abundance of the heart speaketh man, right? And so are you speaking defilement or
Yep.
discouragement over yourself, right? Or are you choosing to own your own thoughts, right? It's not everybody else's fault, right? To own your own thoughts, own your own circumstance that you do have control over, and choosing to make a difference, because we all know that if you fly off at the mouth, then you're going to owe, right? You're going to owe
Hmm.
apologies. And then you'll own, thinking those dreadful things at night. Oh, snap, I can't believe I lost it today, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Instead of like, I know another. So teach us about looking through the lens of the other person.
Hmm. Wow. Honestly, I think that I say this all the time, one of the secret of life really is when you realize it's not about you, that Actually, my son imparted this wisdom one time. It was hysterical. He said, and this he was in his 20s at this point when he said this to me. He said, in your 20s, you worry about what everybody thinks about you. In your 40s, you don't care what people think about you. In your 60s, you realize nobody was thinking about you. But isn't that true? It's like everybody they're about them and their world and that kind of thing. And so often we will hear somebody say something and we'll think, well, how could they say that to me? They're attacking me. No, they're not even conscious of you. They barely even know you're there. Okay. They're focused on them. And so if I could take a moment and, as Dale Carnegie would say, try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view, if I could take that perspective and say, well, where's that coming from? What's driving that behavior? What's the why behind that? And oftentimes it's not hard to identify. It's a source of insecurity. They're afraid of something. And then as soon as I realize, okay, well, what's causing this person to be insecure? Then it tells me exactly what I need to do in order to help that person feel more secure. And uh, this is a silly story, but I had a person in a class recently say, so I have a person who just seems to always be complaining about things. In fact, she said, I got up in my office because I was recognized. I just finished my dissertation, got my PhD, and I was getting all this recognition. And this other person was sitting there as I'm getting all this recognition, and she's literally like, and then finally she says, so how long is this going to take? And she said, I was so offended and she says, what do you do with that person? Like, how do I confront that person? What do I say? And I said, well, I don't know enough about this person, to be honest, to really say exactly how to handle that. I mean, people are unique, okay? Everybody's unique. But my question would be, where do you think that's coming from? Why is she acting that way? And my guess is you're in the spotlight right now. You're getting all this recognition, and she feels undervalued. And she's saying, well, I did some great stuff this week and nobody noticed. And so who knows? So if you want my opinion, the first place I would go is I would talk to her and say about that. And I said, eventually, but I would start with making sure that she feels valued. I would make a extra effort of just giving her appreciation and tell her, you know, uh, what you did the other day and how you helped with that. I really appreciate that. And I would just make sure that I shone the light on her and see what happens. I don't know if that'll fix it, but I know it won't make it worse.
That's very good advice. And it reminds me, it was a couple of months ago, there was a day where it was an open forum and we were encouraged to ask a question. I asked a question. And in the open and but the where the question was asked, the person who received the question took it a different way. Took it a totally different way,
Sure.
which would have made it appear that I was a complainer or that I was
Mm,
dishonoring another. Well, Dave, this went on in my mind for about 3 hours. And I just thought to myself, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I giving this other person authority over my mind? Just stop
mm,
it. I thought, do I go back and tell the, leadership personnel what I really meant, right? Or da
yeah.
da 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 da, right? But then I thought to myself, wait a minute, Shawn, these other people know you. They've come to know you through experiential relationships, right? And then I remember I was taking a shower that night thinking, and the thought came to me, Shawn, you are not going to be able to go around to everybody and their sister and making sure everybody understands your motives.
Yeah. That's right.
Drop it. Drop it. Just let it go and drop it, right? Just focus on pouring love into other people. Just
And
just
it'll all
focus
work out.
on love because love always wins. Always wins.
Absolutely.
We could go back to what was that Miracle on 32nd Street, right? And the Scrooge banker, right? In the end, love won.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
won. So
It's so true.
give us some examples in dealing with different clientele, how you saw that. Maybe perhaps, of course, without names, right? somebody who came to you and potentially where their mindset was, and in a period of time, how you just watch them and then you watch them
Mm,
advance in society.
mm. The challenge there is to come up with one. I see that I see transformation so constantly where people most of what I deal with in like open enrollment courses are self-doubt. People are just
Okay.
they lack they lack the belief in their self, their abilities, their confidence. Um, and so part of what we encourage them to do is just to put a vision together of who they want to be, and then explain. You don't have to figure out the how yet. Just first create the vision. That's the first step. And then we work on developing skills, and helping, and we work in primarily very soft skills like communication skills, your ability to connect with people, influence, how to influence people. And that influence comes from doing the thing we just described and recognizing that it's not about you. Put your ego aside, think about what that person really wants. And you're not going to motivate, you don't motivate anybody, you create alignment, you help find what they want and what you want and work together on it. uh, and so what we found is when people overcome when they shift their focus from themselves to other people and to trying to add value in other situations, that's when we see this big shift. In fact, I did actually commission a study and what happens to people's career trajectory after they take our training, and 42% got promoted within 12 months, which is a pretty massive number if you think about that. So I can't promise promotions, obviously, but what we found is that when you shift your focus, then other people see you as a leader. When you stop trying to push you, and instead anybody you push pull, I don't know, you shine the light on other people, suddenly good things happen for you. So
We
uh,
can
I
lift them, we display them, we lift them up, right? We lift them up. You know, there's our motto behind us is those who refresh others will they themselves be refreshed,
yes,
right? So as we're, and it kind of gives you like a proud brother, sister, mother, father, like, wow, look at that person grow.
exactly,
It does,
exactly.
it fills you with joy.
As a leader, if you are not inspired by that, don't be a leader. That's because
Oh,
that really, in my opinion, is your number one driver. That if you can take joy in other people's success. I've got people on my team that it's just so inspiring for me to see what's happened. Actually, the, there's a person who started as a social media coordinator and data entry person, and she's now what's called a Carnegie Master Trainer. This is like over 7 years. There's only 30 of those in the world. She's the youngest one by probably 20 years. And out of 3,500 trainers globally, she's like one of 30 that are allowed to certify other trainers. And I can remember on more than one occasion in her career just trying to give her a little nudge, like when she started, she said, I will do anything here. I love this business, is amazing. I'll do anything except sales. I don't do sales. And so I said, yeah, a lot of people feel that way. So that's fine. So we go on a little while and she's doing really well with her data entry stuff. She becomes a trainer and she's really amazing as a trainer. And she had expressed that she wants to be a master trainer, which is that next level up, not necessarily even the Carnegie Master. That was too high a goal at that point. And I remember saying to her, I actually took her for breakfast tacos. We're in Texas, breakfast tacos and coffee. And I said, okay, so here's how I see it. You came in and you learned about marketing, and really, there's only a few pillars in this business that you really. There's marketing, there's administration, there's training, like delivery, product basically, and then there's sales. And I said, you know about marketing. You've done a great job in that area. She's maybe a year and a half, 2 years in at this point, and you have the administrative side of things worked out, and you're a great trainer. I really believe you could be a master trainer. So really, the only other thing you haven't done is sales. And she looked at me. She's like, you want me to go into sales, don't you? And and I said, I don't want you to do anything. I want you to be your best. That's all. And I said, now, as a master trainer, having some experience in sales would give you more credibility. I mean, there's certainly that, but it's your call, what you want to do. And I'll never forget, she'd look like, okay, I'll do it. All right. So on our first sales call, we go and she has this meeting, and I'm just along for the ride there for support. She has this meeting and absolutely masterfully handles this discussion about what they're trying to do with their team and the direction they're going as a company and all this. And literally, we end up with a big sale. I mean, a really big sale. We get back in the car, and you normally have a little debrief after one of those sales meetings. And I just looked at her and I said, "Oh man, that sales stuff is brutal, isn't it?" And she laughed and she said, "No, it was fun." And I said, "Yeah, I thought you might like it." And so from there on, when I actually got to the point where I said, "Okay, we now need you to be the director of training for us." So she was responsible for all of our trainer team. Her last request, she says, "Yes, that's my dream job. I want to do that." She said, "But can I still keep this account and that account?" Like, she still wanted to have a couple of opportunities to still sell, which is I think hysterical. So my point is that a lot of times people don't believe it's possible, and so you create some alignment about who they want to be with maybe some of these other areas for growth, and then suddenly she wanted to do it, and then she discovered not only did she want to do it, she was good at it. So that's an internal example within my team.
That's a really good example because you can't very well, when you very first started speaking, I was thinking of like a tightrope, right? You don't present the tightrope, stick a person on a unicycle and say, get out there and ride it.
Hmm.
No, it's baby steps. It's letting them go up one step and have that success, right? And feel it. She felt it. She felt the success. She felt the
Yeah.
adrenaline flowing through her body. Her endorphins were electrified, right? She felt it. She sensed it. She saw it. And almost like I could see you as you're speaking, I could see her in speaking to the potential clients. How do I navigate through this? Which stemmed from the data entry, right?
Oh
Which
yeah.
stemmed from
So,
navigating. So we can't discredit any of the smaller steps as insignificant.
hmm
We can't.
no. Yeah.
So let's say somebody who they're not even business owners, right? Nobody in their family has ever owned a business. Nobody's ever even gone to college in their family lineage. How would you approach somebody like that? Oh, you know what? What if you're a grandparent and you decide that you want to bless the next generation with tools to help them advance in life? What kind of
Wow.
commercial would you give there?
Well, I think a really foundational place to go is the Dale Carnegie course. I mean, that's something that had a big impact on my family. In fact, I just had a conversation just before we got on our call with a grandfather who was calling me about sending his grandson to the Dale Carnegie course, which I just love. And he talked about the fact that it was so profound an experience for him that he wanted to be able to have that opportunity to help his grandson, who's in his 20s. And I said, what a great time to really build these kind of foundational skills. I think that I, what you were describing earlier is that it doesn't happen all at once. Uh, actually, if you found me on Facebook, and we're on Facebook, of course, if you actually remember when you first joined Facebook, they ask you like, "What's your life quote?" or something. Yeah. So, like when I migrated from MySpace, yeah, I'm that old. Anyway, so mine says, "Every day, in every way, I get a little better. Hey." So you have to say hey at the end so that you can do it over and over again. Like when I'm working out, every day and every way I get a little better. Hey, every day and every way I get a little better. Hey. In fact, I could actually show you I gave a talk at a Chamber of Commerce recently and in San Antonio. And I finished with that. I said, you got to do this like a cheer. And so we had everybody get up and do that every day and every way. I get a little better. Hey, it's pretty fun anyway. But I honestly, I believe that's part of the mindset. When I became a trainer, uh, yeah, again, I was very, very young. I said, my goal is to be great at this. I said, I want to be world class. I don't want to just, I didn't get my lapel pin. So now I'm a trainer. I'm good. I want to be world class at this. And this is a journey. So I don't ever expect that I'll have this completely mastered. And it's just that you're always trying to improve your craft. So that's, I think, as a mindset, I can give the same advice that my dad gave me. When he said, in your 20s, don't worry about how much money you make. Just work on building you. And he said, if you really invest in yourself and your own development, someday money will not be an issue. So it's really about continuous improvement for yourself. Now, so for the grandparent, you're never done. Like keep working on yourself too, right? I'm a grandparent, so I've got lots of grandkids, but I'm still working on me.
And what an honor for grandparents to be able to watch not their children, but their children's children. Let's just take it up a notch to great,
Mm.
right? To be able to watch your children's children walk out a blessed life. So you say the grave thing. You said it was morbid. I didn't think it was morbid. Um, oh, you said much of humanity made bricks and then they died, right?
Made
And
bricks out of mud.
yeah, made bricks out of mud. Oh, I gotta make sure I have the mud in there. Made bricks, out of mud. I gotta put that in there. Okay, out of mud. Made bricks out of mud. And I've said often, it will be written of us all. Here's our life, and then they were no more.
Mm.
And then they were no more, right? And so I think it comes down. Okay, so with you, for the tragedy of losing your bride that you had for 30 and change, right? That's
37
not
years,
a
yeah.
that's not a we've been married for 2 years. Not that it would make it any easier, but
Mm.
you knew your bride longer than you've been alive,
Mm.
right? I mean, much longer.
More
But
than half, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
way more than half, right? But if we think of it, in the last 6, 7, 8 months of your life, okay, you had to make a choice. And that was, no matter the pain that I'm enduring, there are people that are counting on me.
Mm.
And I've got to show up. So, can you tell us about being a leader? Because leaders they're just not, one day you wake up and I'm a leader. And we can't see a person one time and think they're a leader, because sometimes we got to watch them. We got to watch
Mm.
them in their actions, what they do, their mannerism. Are they punctual? Right? Do they, does coming out of their mouth like I don't give a rip? Right? What is their whole attitude about? So, give us an example where you've had to choose as a leader to say no to personal pain,
Mm.
not conviction, but conflict. Okay, because you're staying true
Sure.
to your conflict and your values and your virtues, right? But just tell us, help our viewers, because when this happens, if it hasn't already happened, right? And especially when you're getting ready to move on to that next step, that seems to be when it's like, oh my gosh, it feels like my flesh is ripping off of me and being flogged.
Mm. Well, as a leader, it's not about you. And so the struggle is that you're an emotional being just like everybody else. And so here's my frustration.
Okay.
I get people to tell me all this all the time as well. I just want to be authentic. I just want to be authentic. And they'll even describe that from a presentation standpoint. I want to be authentic. I just want to be myself. And I'm kind of a low key guy. So therefore, I said, when does authentic equal boring? Okay, like you don't have to be that's not what we're talking about here. And so what I would say is that there's feelings and there's values. And I don't want to operate from my feelings all the time. I want to operate from my values. I want that to be my driver. not my feelings. I got in trouble once because I actually said feelings are lies. There's a lot of people don't like that statement. So the point is that no, they're not lies. They are real things. I get it. But at the same time, I don't want the driver in my life to be my feelings. I want the driver in my life to be my values. So a quick example is I had a very special colleague that was one of the first people I ever hired when I started the Dale Carnegie office in Austin. Had some health issues, and she was not able to return to work, and it was a traumatic thing for us and for our team. And I can remember going into her office in January with Shelby, and this all happened over the holidays too. This is a couple of years ago. Shelby's my daughter-in-law who also works with me, and we were just going through her office and we're crying as we're putting things in, moving things around and trying to find out what, the status of certain projects were. So it came time for our quarterly planning session. And I remember thinking, well, how do I approach this? The team's together, and Hee Jung is not here, and we love her, and we, I said I can't deny my feelings. If I do that, then I'm fake, and so I have to own this. But at the same time, Hee Jung would be the first one to say, "We're warriors. Let's go get it," that kind of thing. And also, like how I felt, if I went by my feelings, we would just sit around, hold hands, and cry, which is not a really effective long-term business strategy. So I can't deny those feelings, but at the same time, I don't want to leave us there. I want to operate from my value system, and that value system is that I need to honor her, right? Because we love her. Our team statement of values, the first sentence in it is life equals relationships. We believe in our heart of hearts that life equals relationships. Sorry, it's getting really dark in here. It's Texas, it's getting.
we can see you. Don't even worry. We can see you fine.
Okay, I'm doing my best.
The light inside of you is just emanating.
I'm moving toward my light here, and I should have chose a bigger one. But so I have to honor that life equals relationships, because that's a value system, right? And then at the same time, we believe in achievement and achieving our potential. And so just staying stuck is not achieving our potential. So as a leader, I had to really think through, how do we operate from these values, not just from our feelings. And I remember having that meeting. We started out in that emotional state because that's where we were, and we had to honor that. But by the end of the 2 days of planning, we had a plan, and we were excited, and we were passionate about accomplishing the things that were ahead of us. So I'll give one example. I give this example to my classes, and you'll appreciate this because my son. For years I traveled. I was on the road, and I would come home on Friday, and I'm tired. And my wife was amazing about never making the kids resentful of the fact that I was away. When I got home, it was dad time, and I was on, and I had to do it. Like I wanted to do it because I hadn't seen them, even though I was tired. So I remember I would get home though, and I'm tired. I'm sitting in my favorite chair. It's Friday, and I had this ritual on how I would put Chris to bed, and it was kind of cute. He would show up with a blanket, and he would lay out this blanket, and then he would lie down in the middle of the blanket, and I would pick up the four corners, and I'd throw it over my shoulder, and I'd carry him off to bed, which was really cute when he was 4. Make him 8, 9, and Chris is a big dude, like he's much bigger than I am. And so even when he was 8 and I'm tired and I'm sitting in that chair and he shows up with the blanket, that moment, what do? My feelings are to tell him to go put himself to bed. That's my feelings. But my values are, let's go, dude. Let's do this. And so what I ask people when I say that, when I did that, Was I inauthentic? I would say no. I was more genuine because I was operating from my deeper personal beliefs. I was operating from my values, not my feelings. And when I operate from my values, then I have integrity, and then I'm being who I really want to be. My feelings cause me to not be who I want to be in many cases. So, not that feelings aren't valid, but values are deeper. And so
You
that's
know,
that's my what,
that's really good. That's okay. Let's think. Okay, but let's be realist for a second. Okay, let's be realist. You're a man who works out. Do you have to feel the feelings when you work out in order
no.
for those muscles to be tore down, almost ripped, to rebuild? Okay, let's go further. Do you have to, if you are, let's say you're a nursing mom, let's say you've chosen to be a nursing mom. These are for women. Now, men can't use this example, okay? You've chosen, well, but they can. They can choose to get up and use what the woman suppressed, right? To use it, right? But when she gets up to nurse that baby in what I call the zombie mode, right? It doesn't matter whether she feels, whoa,
Yeah,
I'm so excited that little one is waking up and I'm going to go
that's
feed
right.
her and try not to fall asleep on her, right? It's because you are walking through the motions to do what is needed for someone else, it
Yes,
will prove to be beneficial.
because
And
it's
if
not
we
about you.
no, and if we realize that one of the speakers that I interviewed, she said, when those days come, which they will come because we live on Earth, right? I give myself permission to have the meltdown, right? Have the meltdown. And she gave a length of time. And then she's like, okay, I needed that, right? I needed that. And now I can move forward. And a highly successful woman that I will be introducing her to my brother Dave this week because of just what she's already accomplished and where she's going is just phenomenal. But there seems to be a pattern in sowing into others, right?
Yes,
So you nothing beneficial is going to come if you're
it's
bleeping somebody.
it's so an unpopular view right now.
Mm-hmm.
This unselfishness is not popular. Selfish is popular right now. And this is
Mm-hmm.
so not Dale Carnegie talking. This is just me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I look at people who are unhappy, and their answer to that unhappiness is, "Well, I need more me time." So you know what? Why don't you go try feed the homeless? Go do something beautiful for somebody else,
Mm.
and guess what? You will feel amazing.
Yeah, you will.
And
Yeah, you will.
in instead of saying, "Okay, I just need to have a glass of wine and a hot bath," okay, that's fine. But that's not going to really change how you're feeling right now. What's going to change how you're feeling is by doing something great.
That's right. That's right. And so for our viewers, can when I wind up sharing this interview, I will attach links as well to share with our viewers. But can you verbally share how they can get in contact with the Dale Carnegie Institute in Texas and you?
Sure. Easy to remember. It's just texas.dalecarnegie.com. And so my email address is david.wright@dalecarnegie.com.
So Texas dot
Dot
Dale Carnegie.
dalecarnegie.com.
So I'll wind up sharing that with our viewers. Thank you for choosing to partner with a generational blessing that your dad chose to partner with, that you chose to partner with, and now your children have chose to partner with,
It's
and your
amazing.
grandchildren are seeing this kind of lifestyle. They are being reared in the atmosphere of positivity, virtuous values, love, of love. They're being nurtured in that environment, and what an incredible impact that's going to make on the future generations to come. So I really thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule
Thank
today.
you.
And I look forward to referring many people your direction. I also want to thank
Thank you.
everybody for joining Sagionic 1027. I'm glad you made that decision to join us. Do reach out to David Wright. And so until the next time, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee. Blessings. Bye.